Dietrich Mateschitz, an Austrian marketing executive, could never have imagined that a bout of jet lag would be the starting point for the creation of a billion-dollar empire called Red Bull. The story of Red Bull begins with an unlikely meeting between two men from completely different backgrounds, united by a vision that no one could have predicted. Dietrich Mateschitz, an Austrian born in a small village, grew up in a modest environment and pursued a solid corporate career as a marketing executive. He was a born strategist, able to see beyond the obvious, but still stuck in the conventional routine of the business world. On the other side of the planet, Chaleo Yoovidhya, the son of Thai farmers, had a humble background and an unusual entrepreneurial mindset. While Dietrich was building his career in corporate offices, Chaleo was on the hot streets of Thailand, developing an energy drink called Krating Daeng. Chaleo's formula was simple but powerful, a combination of ingredients that gave immediate energy to exhausted workers, especially truck drivers and factory workers. The paths of these two men crossed by chance in the 1980s during Mateschitz's business trip to Thailand. Suffering from jet lag after long flights and intense meetings, he found the solution in a small bottle of Krating Daeng. The effect was so remarkable that it awakened not only his energy, but also his curiosity. As a marketing executive, Mateschitz knew how to recognize an opportunity. What was just a popular drink among Asian workers could be transformed into something bigger, if well adapted to the Western market. He saw untapped potential in Krating Daeng, something that could transcend cultures and redefine consumer habits. Dietrich, with his analytical instinct, soon approached Chaleo to discuss a possible partnership. Despite their cultural and style differences, the two found common ground. Chaleo, with his experience in the local market and his already established formula, and Dietrich, with his global marketing vision and ability to reposition the product, formed an unlikely but complementary duo. The negotiation between them was not just a matter of numbers, it was a meeting of philosophies. For Chaleo, it was an opportunity to take his creation to new horizons. For Mateschitz, it was a chance to innovate and challenge market rules. The formalization of the partnership in 1984 marked the beginning of Red Bull GmbH. Dietrich was responsible for the global expansion and reformulation of the drink, while Chaleo brought the technical knowledge and infrastructure for production. Together, they decided that the name should be universal, something that conveys energy and strength. Red Bull emerged as a more commercial and attractive translation of Krating Daeng, maintaining the symbolism of the Red Bull, an icon of power and vitality. This collaboration between Thailand and Austria was much more than a simple trade alliance. It was a cultural shock that generated something unique. The drink that was once consumed on roads and markets in Thailand was about to be introduced to the Western world, but not before undergoing some fundamental transformations, which would redefine its identity and prepare the ground for what was to come. Chapter 2. The formula that won the West. When Dietrich Mateschitz returned to Austria after his trip to Thailand, he took with him more than the memory of an energy drink that had renewed his energy. He brought an idea that was simmering in his mind. The Thai drink Krating Daeng had great potential, but Mateschitz knew that to win over Western palates, it would need adjustments. The original formula, created by Chaleo Yoovidhya, was extremely sweet, designed to appeal to the Asian market, where intense flavors are more appreciated. For the European public, however, that could be an obstacle. Dietrich realized that it was not enough to export the product as it was. He needed to transform it into something that combined familiarity and novelty. The first change was to include carbon dioxide in the formula, an element that made the drink more refreshing and familiar to consumers accustomed to soft drinks. Furthermore, the sweetness was adjusted to achieve a balance that would appeal to European tastes, without losing the drink's identity. The new formula, which still maintained the vibrant energy of the original, went through countless tests until it reached the perfect flavor. Dietrich didn't just tweak the product, he reinvented the experience of consuming it, bringing a modernity that made sense in the West. The reformulation was not just a matter of taste, but also of perception. The Thai drink was sold in small glass bottles, typical of pharmaceutical products in Asia. Dietrich knew that this format would not connect with the Western public, who were looking for something more practical and sophisticated. It was then that he decided to launch the drink in a thin, elongated can, something that would not only make the product stand out on the shelves, but also differentiate it from regular soft drinks. The can became an extension of the concept that Dietrich wanted to convey, something innovative, functional, and at the same time, premium. These changes did not come from a whim, but from a desire to meet a demand that Mateschitz already envisioned. Busy professionals, students, and athletes who needed an energy boost to maintain the fast pace of life. This vision began to form more clearly when he remembered why he first tried Krating Daeng: jet lag. The idea of creating a drink that would help people stay alert, focused, and productive motivated him to move forward, even though he faced initial resistance from partners and investors who doubted the concept. Dietrich also knew that success wouldn't just depend on the flavor or design of the can. He needed to position the drink as something entirely new, something that wasn't simply an alternative to traditional soft drinks. To do this, he began to imagine how to present Red Bull in a way that would capture the imagination and desire of Western consumers. It was at this moment that the seeds of a new market segment began to be planted, but this would require a bold approach, which was still taking shape. Chapter 3: A New Market Segment. When Red Bull's new formula was ready and the innovative design had been defined, Dietrich Mateschitz knew that the real challenge was yet to come, conquering a market that didn't know it needed an energy drink. The concept was completely new in the West, and Dietrich was fully aware that it was not enough to launch the product on the shelves. He needed to create a market, a category that simply didn't exist. His experience in marketing was crucial at this time. Rather than compete directly with soft drinks and juices, Mateschitz decided to position Red Bull as something entirely different. He wasn't just selling a drink, it was introducing a concept of functionality and performance. And to do that, I needed a strategy that was as unique as the product. The first step was to define a clear target audience, people who needed extra energy at specific times. Dietrich envisioned young college students facing long nights of studying, stressed professionals trying to stay focused on work, and athletes striving for peak performance. But he knew that simply describing the benefits of Red Bull wouldn't be enough. He needed to create an emotional connection, something that would make the drink desired for its image, not just its functionality. This is how the slogan, "Red Bull gives you wings," was born. More than a simple catchphrase, it encapsulated the essence of what the brand wanted to convey: energy, freedom, and a touch of boldness. The choice of this slogan was strategic, as it appealed to both practicality and the human desire for something more, the idea of transcending the limits of routine. This was the first step in transforming Red Bull into an aspirational brand. Dietrich also made a decision that seemed risky at the time, positioning Red Bull as a premium drink. The price per can was deliberately set above the average for traditional soft drinks, creating a perception of exclusivity. He knew that, to establish the product as something different, the price needed to reinforce this narrative. Furthermore, the minimalist and elegant design of the can complemented this strategy, highlighting the product as something modern and sophisticated. The first phase of Red Bull's introduction to the market did not involve grandiose advertising campaigns. Mateschitz opted for something more subtle and experimental. He started with localized marketing actions, distributing free samples at universities, gyms, and offices. He also invested in underground events, such as parties and raves, where young and fashionable audiences gathered. This initial approach created a sense of exclusivity and mystery around the drink, which seemed to be discovered only by those who were part of a select circle. The strategy worked, but Dietrich knew this was just the beginning. The market was beginning to recognize Red Bull as something new and intriguing, but consolidating that image and expanding it would require an even greater leap forward. He needed something that transcended traditional marketing, something that would transform Red Bull into a cultural movement. Chapter 4: The Wings of Alternative Marketing. With the concept of a new beverage category beginning to take hold, Dietrich Mateschitz knew the next step was to transform Red Bull into something more than a product. He wanted the brand to be a lifestyle. To do this, he would need to go beyond conventional marketing tactics. Red Bull would not be sold just with advertisements, but with experiences. And the key to this was reaching the target audience in an authentic, almost invisible, but deeply impactful way. From the beginning, Dietrich avoided large traditional advertising campaigns. Instead, he focused on events and activities that were as unusual and daring as the drink's concept itself. This is how the first experiential marketing initiatives were born, which placed the brand directly at the heart of youth culture. Underground parties and raves, which had already been tested in the initial phase, became part of a broader strategy. On these occasions, Red Bull was not just served. It was integrated into the spirit of the event. The drink became synonymous with energy, movement, and fun. But Dietrich didn't stop there. He understood that youth were looking for something more than just parties. They wanted adventure, challenge, and adrenaline. That was when the brand began to get involved with extreme sports, a territory still little explored by large companies. Dietrich identified extreme sports as a perfect opportunity to connect Red Bull to the spirit of overcoming and freedom. Sponsoring skateboarding, surfing, BMX, and even downhill racing competitions was not just a way of associating the brand with athletes. It was an invitation for the public to share that universe. It was in this context that one of the brand's most iconic events emerged: Red Bull Flugtag, a competition in which participants created improvised flying machines and launched them from a platform towards the water. The event, in addition to being eccentric and fun, perfectly reflected the slogan, "Red Bull gives you wings," and reinforced the idea that the brand did not take itself too seriously, but took the spirit of innovation and freedom very seriously. This approach to creating unique experiences gave Red Bull a differentiator that no other beverage brand had at the time. Instead of just broadcasting advertising messages, the brand created moments that people remembered and shared. It was marketing that made people feel part of something bigger. As these events and initiatives grew, Red Bull began to be seen not just as an energy drink, but as a catalyst for experiences. Audiences were drawn not just by the promise of energy, but by the thrill of being part of a bold, vibrant movement. However, to consolidate this transformation from product to lifestyle, Dietrich knew he needed to go beyond events and parties. The brand had to be present in other spaces and, above all, create its own cultural narrative. Chapter 5: A Small Investment, a Big Dream. With Red Bull's identity taking shape through bold events and innovative experiences, Dietrich Mateschitz knew it was time to structure the brand's growth with a solid financial foundation. Unlike large corporations that started with massive investments, Red Bull was born from a leaner approach, where each decision was carefully calculated. At the start, in 1984, Dietrich invested $500,000 of his own money, securing 49% of the company. This amount may seem modest for starting a global business, but it was a bold bet for a product that, until then, was completely unknown in the Western market. This initial capital was used with extreme caution. Instead of pouring resources into mass production or traditional advertising, Dietrich focused on initiatives that maximized impact with minimal investment. His philosophy was clear: create desire before increasing supply. With this, Red Bull began operations on a small scale, testing local markets and continually refining its approach. The drink, officially launched in 1987 in Austria, began to attract curiosity and create a loyal consumer base. The choice to keep production limited in the first years was strategic. The scarcity of the product on the shelves, coupled with the premium price, reinforced the idea of exclusivity. This perception was fundamental to consolidating Red Bull as something desirable, even for consumers who had not yet tried the product. Mateschitz's investment was also directed towards creating an efficient distribution network, ensuring that wherever the drink was available, the drinking experience was seamless. Another crucial aspect was the company's internal culture, shaped from the beginning by Dietrich. He believed in maintaining an agile and innovative structure where every team member not only understood the product but also lived it. This spirit meant that Red Bull's first campaigns and events were organized in an almost artisanal way, but with an authenticity that resonated directly with the public. While Dietrich led these initiatives in Europe, the partnership with Chaleo Yoovidhya ensured a solid base in Thailand. Chaleo's experience in production and distribution has allowed Red Bull to grow consistently without compromising product quality or identity. This duality of leadership, with Chaleo focused on operational efficiency and Dietrich on brand building, was fundamental to success in the early years. The small initial investment, combined with a strategic approach and an obsessive focus on the consumer, paved the way for Red Bull to begin to gain traction. But Dietrich knew that to take the brand to the next level, he would need to expand its operations while keeping intact the spirit of exclusivity that made it unique. The next challenge would be to find the balance between global growth and preserving the authenticity that had become Red Bull's DNA. Chapter 6: The Birth of a New Category. As Red Bull began to expand its presence beyond Austria's borders, Dietrich Mateschitz realized that his vision was becoming a reality. But the initial success was not enough for him. Dietrich had bigger ambitions. He wanted to not only popularize Red Bull as a global brand, but also transform the energy drink category into an entirely new market. This was unexplored territory with no direct competitors, but also no references to follow, which made the challenge even more stimulating. In the years following its launch, Red Bull not only grew in popularity, but also paved the way for a new generation of products. Until then, the concept of functional drinks, those that offered specific benefits such as energy, hydration, or improved performance, was almost unknown in the West. Dietrich, with his visionary approach, changed this completely. He wasn't just selling a drink, he was educating consumers about the need for a product that met their modern demands. With Red Bull's success, other companies began to see the potential in the functional beverage market. Isotonic drinks, liquid supplements, and even energy coffees began to appear, but none with the brand strength that Red Bull had established. Red Bull, in turn, did not see the arrival of competitors as a threat. On the contrary, Dietrich believed that expanding the category only validated the vision he and Chaleo had started. He knew that as long as Red Bull continued to innovate, the brand's place at the top was secure. In addition to popularizing the concept of energy drinks, Red Bull has influenced entire industries. The thin and compact can design, for example, started to be adopted by other brands that sought to convey a modern and functional image. Red Bull's approach to marketing, based on experiences, events, and an aspirational lifestyle, also began to be replicated in markets beyond drinks, such as technology, fashion, and sports. But Red Bull's impact was not limited to the commercial sector. The brand also contributed to the rise of a new global culture where energy, performance, and adventure were celebrated. Presence at extreme sports, raves, and festivals helped shape the identity of a generation that sought to live on the edge, exploring possibilities and defying conventions. More than a drink, Red Bull has become a symbol of this mentality. This growth and Red Bull's consolidation as a market leader were direct results of Dietrich's strategy of always thinking beyond the product. He saw Red Bull as a platform for cultural transformation, something that connected people around the world through a universal language, the search for energy and vitality. However, as the brand continued to dominate the market, new challenges appeared on the horizon. Red Bull needed to ensure that its pace of innovation did not slow down and that its essence remained intact, even in the face of a global scale that seemed to have no limits. Chapter 7: The Future of Red Bull, Lifestyle and Legacy. With Red Bull already established as a leader in a new market category and a symbol of an energetic and bold culture, Dietrich Mateschitz knew that the next step would be to further expand the brand's impact. But to do so, he needed to ensure that Red Bull was perceived not just as a drink, but as a cultural force capable of transcending generations. The challenge now was to preserve the authenticity built in the early years while exploring new territories and creating experiences that kept the brand alive in people's minds and hearts. Dietrich realized that the key to this was not just events and sponsorships, but creating a complete ecosystem around the Red Bull universe. This is how the brand began to invest in ambitious projects, such as Red Bull Media House, a media platform that produced original content, including documentaries, films, TV shows, and live broadcasts of sponsored events. More than a marketing arm, Red Bull Media House became a narrative factory, capturing moments of courage, overcoming, and creativity that perfectly aligned with the brand's spirit. One of the most emblematic moments of this movement was Felix Baumgartner's stratospheric leap in 2012. The event, called Red Bull Stratos, was not only a milestone for the brand, but for the history of humanity. Millions of people around the world watched as Baumgartner leapt from the edge of the stratosphere, breaking records and challenging the limits of science and the human body. For Red Bull, that jump was more than a publicity stunt. It was a statement that the brand was synonymous with pushing boundaries. At the same time, Red Bull continued to expand its presence in sports and entertainment. From creating its own Formula One team to supporting extreme sports competitions, the brand positioned itself as a facilitator of dreams and achievements. Each action reinforced the idea that Red Bull was more than an energy drink. It was a brand that gave wings to ideas and projects that seemed impossible. But despite all the success, Dietrich never lost sight of the importance of keeping the brand's essence intact. He knew that the real challenge was not just growing, but growing with purpose. Therefore, Red Bull remained true to its original approach, prioritizing the consumer experience and investing in deep emotional connections, rather than relying solely on traditional advertising. With each new step, Red Bull established itself as a brand that not only followed trends, but created them. However, Dietrich knew that the future would bring even greater challenges. As the global market became more competitive and consumer expectations evolved, Red Bull would need to continue to innovate and find new ways to surprise and inspire. Because, for Dietrich, true success was not just leading the market, but continuing to reinvent it, always with the promise of giving wings to everyone who dreamed of flying higher.